So just take a moment or two to settle and arrive. Jan, are you okay with that light?
Yes.
Got those lights on, actually.
I'm fine, yeah.
Shall I turn that one off? Do you want more light?
No, but I mean, it's nice to have a little bit of glow.
Yes, given there's not much, there's not much outside at the moment. So, yes, we're just talking about here how we've got the heating on and some lights on, which is all rather depressing, but maybe what we need. So, yes, start with perhaps just a little bit of letting your head roll to the right and to the left. So you can have your knees bent or your legs long, whichever you prefer. And then letting your head ease from side to side. And just as you do so, have a sense of how is your neck feeling? How's your head feeling? Sensing into the face, the forehead. How are your shoulders feeling? And so eventually you're going to come to a place where you settle the back of your head on the floor. And you maybe then settle the shoulders down. You can let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. Feel the weight of your body on the ground. And then we're going to do a few movements of tilting our knees with our legs in different organisations. So the first thing you're going to do is just as we normally do, feet standing on the floor, knees bent, feet a little distance apart. And letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. Good. And when I was doing this earlier today, it's just, there's something very nice and settling about coming back to these familiar movements that we probably do every time. I have new neighbours who've just moved in today, and banging is. So,
we just have to ignore it.
Yes, hopefully it won't carry out. Good. So just a few more times, tilting the knees to the right and to the left. And again, a sense of just enjoying the familiarity of the movement. Obviously noticing how it feels in your body. But these familiar things can be quite soothing and calming. And then if you pause in the centre, you can let a breath come in, and as you exhale, then fold your knees into your chest and hold around the top of your knees and just do a little bit of rocking from side to side. That's it. Or you can do a little bit of circling around the back of your pelvis. And again, this sort of familiar, soothing movements. And you could also then, if you like, take your legs up to the ceiling and give them a little shake out. That's it. You can add your arms in if you like. Just again, what feels nice. Sometimes it's nice to stretch into the heels, and really what feels good in the legs. And then bring your feet back to the floor. Keep the knees bent. And then what you're going to do is cross one leg over the other leg. So cross your knees rather than bringing your ankle. That's it. Good. And then what you might like to do with the foot that remains on the floor is to bring it a bit more central. And then start to rock side to side on that standing foot. So we're coming back to that same movement of the knees tilting to the right and to the left. But we're seeing how it feels now with the knees crossed. Again, you just go as far as feels comfortable and easy. We're not pushing anything at this point. But again, if things feel quite easy in your body, it might be a larger movement. To the right and to the left. You've still not found your yoga mat picture. Okay, you're going to pause in the middle and you're going to change the cross of your legs. Actually, do you want the window open? Okay. I mean, given that, yes, we didn't start on that, given that everything's going to be ending in terms of restrictions in 10 days' time.
I did a lateral flow test this morning.
Okay, did you? Yeah. Good. Let your knees tilt to the right and to the left. Good. So yes, we should have the second leg on top now. If you haven't changed, then make sure you have when you do. Good. That's nice. So just a couple more times on this side. And then what you're going to do from here is uncross your legs and lengthen your legs out on the floor, and maybe just give your knees a bounce or give your legs a little bit of a roll and see how it feels to lie long for a moment. So you could let a cycle or two of breath move through you, feeling the length of your body on the floor. So you can sense the back of your head in contact with the floor. That's it. All the way down to the back of your heels. And then we'll do one final bit, as you come back to having your legs long for a moment. We'll do one final bit of tilting our knees. And this time you're going to bend your knees. And when you stand your feet on the floor, take your feet wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And come to tilting your knees with your feet in this position. That's it. So let the knees tilt to the right and to the left. And again, see how this one feels. So we, perhaps the last one, maybe felt it more in the outside of our hip joints. This one, perhaps we start to feel on the inner thigh, maybe a little bit more. Good. So letting the knees tilt from side to side. And if you like in this one, you can let your knees come all the way down to one side. And stay there for a couple of breaths and let your head roll in the opposite direction. Are you two okay? Does anyone want a cushion under there? Either me, Rachel, do you? Okay, there. That might be the baby that's moved into next door. It's all going to be different.
Which way, that side?
This side, yeah. It's been empty for quite a while. Good. So let the knees, when you've had a couple of breaths with the knees down on one side, you could let the knees come onto the other side and have a couple of breaths there. That's nice. Just give away the weight of the legs, let your head roll in the opposite direction. And when you've had enough on that side, you can come back to the centre. And one last time, you're going to fold your knees into your chest. And do a little bit of rocking, a little bit of rolling around the back of your pelvis. You can take your arms and legs up to the ceiling, give them a shake out if you like. That's it. And quite nice if you were to stretch your heels up to the ceiling for a moment, because imagine you're standing upside down, because we are going to be coming over into standing. I wouldn't say I'm afraid, but that's what we're going to be doing. So maybe have a little think about that and then make your way over into standing. Oh, so jumper coming off. I might turn the heating down a little bit. Let's see how we get on. Okay, great. So we're up in standing. We're going to do a few twisty things to start with. So the first thing we're going to do is a bit of swinging our arms. This loose, easy swinging twist. Good. And you can let your hands strap onto your body, particularly if you're feeling you need a little bit of a wake up at this point in the day. Good. Very nice. And again, just really noticing how this feels in the shoulders. Again, we've got that sort of familiar movement, so maybe there's that sort of sense of being able to sort of relax and settle because we're doing something we know well. Okay, do this a couple more times. Good. And then we're going to settle in standing. So you're going to look down at your feet and organise your feet so they're a little distance apart. And then stop looking at your feet and bring your hands onto your pelvis and just feel where your pelvis is, because we're going to do a few little twists where we're not moving the pelvis. And then slide your hands up onto your low ribs. And actually, before we start to twist, so if your thumb's coming round towards the back, let your shoulders drop. But before we start to turn, I'd just like you to maybe close your eyes here and have a couple of cycles of breath and feel your low ribs widening into your hands as you breathe in. And then narrowing as you exhale. So this feeling of widening and narrowing around the middle of ourselves. Good, and then open your eyes and then come to a little bit of turning. So turning from the waist up, that's it. And I think when I was doing this earlier, I was thinking, it's not easy. We're not going a huge way. Good. And then we can, if we take our hands onto our shoulders, it can feel that there's a little bit more movement. It's not that we're actually going any further, but the shoulders do, I suppose the shoulders go further than the ribs. There's a bit more movement there. And also, as we lift our arms, so we can bring our fingers to the crown of our head, as we lift our ribs also lift, and then there's a bit more space between them to turn. Very nice. Good. Wonderful. Okay. Let that go before the arms get tired, and just come back to the first one where we're swinging our arms. We're letting everything come along. So again, it's sort of much, in a way, easier, softer. Very nice. Good. A couple more times. And then we're going to settle back down into standing. I might turn the heating off for a bit, but if it gets colder, I'll turn it back on again. While we're moving more, we're going to settle down in standing, and we're going to come to a balance, but we're going to start really simply, and then we can develop it if we want to. So perhaps the first thing you could do is just a little bit of swaying, so you can decide which foot you would like to stand on. And you could close your eyes for that if you need to. And then we're going to start by settling down, bringing our hands into prayer pose. So this is the first bit of the balance. And then from here, you're going to bring your weight over onto your chosen foot, and you're just going to stand your foot on that foot. Okay, so you could stay here. Maybe see how that feels for a breath or two. So you could stay there. You're standing on your chosen foot. And then from there, if you like, you could bring your raised foot, knee out to the side a bit. So you're coming into a little mini tree pose. That's it, if you want to. And again, just see how that feels. And then from there, if you liked, you could slide your foot a bit higher up your leg so your heel comes above your knee. Good, so these are all possibilities. And then if you still wanted to try something else, you could let your arms float up, but keep your shoulders soft and relaxed. Good, that's very nice. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then from there, you can bring your hands back into prayer pose in front of you. Good. And then coming down, having a little shake out. So this is that time of night, isn't it, if you're a baby, when they're sort of restless. Yes, and just sort of it's all just too much so, for everyone, I think, by this point. Okay, so shake out of each leg, and then we'll try the other side. So again, start by looking down at your feet, settling your feet on the floor, then gathering your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. You can let a breath come in, let a breath leave you. You're going to start to shift your weight onto the other leg now. So the first thing we're going to do is bring the foot we just stood on to stand on our standing foot. That's it, good. And then just let yourself settle there. Have a breath or two. And then we let the knee come out to the side. So we come onto a sort of mini tree pose. See how that feels. And then again, settle there. And then from that mini tree pose, we could slide upwards a bit higher up. So the heel comes above the knee. And again, settle there. And then from there, we could let our arms grow up. Let our shoulders drop. Breath come in, let. Oops. Right, well done everyone for staying balanced. Okay. Good. So I'm just telling me my internet connection's unstable and it's by Ethernet, so it shouldn't be doing that. So sorry, I'm just going to wiggle the wires around for a moment and see if I can get that.
It's hard to balance when your internet connection.
When the internet connection is unstable, yes. So let me just try and get that to be stable. I think. Yes. Okay. Good. So we're going to come now into a sequence, moving from the back of the mat. So just reminding, just double checking. Yes, that is what we're doing. So if you come to the back of your mat and settle, organise your feet a little distance apart, bring your hands into prayer pose in front of your chest. And just for a moment, feel your feet on the floor, feel the contact of your hands, feel the movement of your breath within you. And then as you exhale, you can take your arms down and then up. Drop your shoulders away from your ears, let a breath come in, then start to gather your elbows in, bend your knees, roll down into a forward bend. So give yourself a couple of breaths in the forward bend. Notice how the backs of your legs feel. How does your lower back feel? Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. And then whenever you're ready, you're going to start to walk your hands forwards into dog pose. And just, going as far, however long you want your dog to be. Walking into dog. And then once you've settled, so resting down through the arms, big handprints on the floor, bending one knee, bending the other, letting your head go. Being aware of your breath, your breathing. That's it. So perhaps just another breath or so in dog pose. Because I'd like us to come onto hands and knees and do a little bit of cat, a little bit of tail wagging. If you need to drop down onto your elbows, rather than, if you want to come off your hands for a moment, you can. If you're okay, you feel okay on your hands and knees, come to a little bit of cat, rounding your back to the ceiling, dipping your spine down to the floor. So again, these familiar movements that help us perhaps to have a sense of how is our body feeling today. So as we round and dip, how do we feel around the middle of ourselves? We can also, if we want to, then add a little bit of tail wagging in. So I tend to always do these things almost in the same order. I do a little bit of the cat, a little bit of rounding and dipping, and I think, I feel a bit tight to my lower back, I'll wag my tail a bit, and then come back to a bit more cat, and just see if the tail wagging has helped to sort of free up the rounding and dipping of cat. And then from a rounded cat and staying rounded, so round your back to the ceiling, and then exhale, rock your hips back over your heels, and settle down into child pose for a couple of breaths. So elbows settle on the floor, perhaps your forehead touches the floor. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. Good. Very nice. And then from child pose, come onto hands and knees. And give each leg a little lengthen out behind you, tucking your toes under. Do this one at a time. Yeah, and then the other leg, you can really stretch into your heel, so feel the sort of back of the leg opening. Good. And if in doing this you've ended up off the back of your mat, then come further forwards, because we're now going to come into plank pose. And we're doing a couple of things today where we're bringing our weight into our arms, because we haven't done these for a while. So lengthen one leg back. That's the easy bit of plank. Our pelvis then needs to stay where it is as we take the other leg off the floor. Good. And then just feeling the movement. Well, I say feeling the movement of the breath. It's not the easiest place to breathe in plank pose. See how we can do for another breath or two. And then when you've had enough, let your knees come down. Start to walk, that's it, very nice. Let your knees come down, tuck your toes under, start to walk your hands into your knees. Come up onto the balls of your feet and just do a little bit of rocking here. Good. So we're going to, from here, send our heels down and our sit bones up, come back into standing. And then we're going to do this little sequence again, but with a slight variation in dog pose. So when you're ready, sending your heels down, sending your sit bones up, so you end up in a forward bend. Touch the backs of your hands together as you exhale, rolling up into standing, training your hands, very nice, straight up to the ceiling, beautiful. Let a breath come in, exhale all the way back down, very nice, good. And then we'll go straight onto the next side. So let a breath come in as you exhale, arms down and then up. Let a breath come in and then exhaling down into your forward bend. Let your head go. And then when you're ready, walking your hands forwards into dog pose. Good. Now, what I was going to suggest in this dog pose is, once you arrive in your dog, is take your feet then wide as the narrow edge of your mat. And I quite like it if I'm in this wide-footed dog pose. It's just a little thing to play around with. To then bend my knees a lot. So bend my knees a lot so my chest is coming back towards my thighs. And there's a feeling of really being able to sort of lean down through the arms into the palms of the hands. Make the shoulders can undo a little bit more. And just see how it feels to have another couple of breaths there. You might want to, before you come out of dog pose, then step your feet back into sort of normal dog pose width apart and just see how that feels for a breath or two. And then again, coming down onto hands and knees. And we might have been in dog pose a little bit longer that time. So if you want to come to do your cat and tail wagging onto your elbows, you could do, but you could also do it on your hands. So it depends whether that's it. So rounding and dipping your spine. I tend to find if I've done a little bit of my elbows, I can then come back onto my hands once they've had a bit of a break. So a little bit of cat, a little bit of tail wagging again. And then in your own time. And then again, once more, we'll come into child pose for a couple of quiet breaths. So rounding your back in your rounded up cat, staying rounded to rock back into child. So we really lengthen out the lower back. Elbows on the floor, perhaps the forehead. Let the body settle, feel the breath moving through you. Okay, and then just as we did on the other side, we'll come forwards onto hands and knees. We'll lengthen each leg out behind us. We'll have the pleasure of doing a plank pose. So when we lengthen each leg out behind us, it's like a sort of half plank pose. So yes, on hands and knees, lengthen each leg out behind us. Do that on both sides. And obviously we're doing a similar thing here with the arms, but when we come on into plank, it's probably even more important just to really pay attention to having the hands shoulder width apart and immediately beneath the shoulders. That will help us in plank. And then one leg and then the other joins it for plank pose. Can we really maybe stretch the heels back? So it helps to use the feet in plank, to have our gaze on the floor somewhere ahead of the fingers, and to be breathing to our best ability. And then we can, whenever we want to, let the knees come down to the floor, keep the toes tucked, walk the hands back in towards the knees, let the knees come off the floor. We can do a little bit of our rocking here on the balls of our feet. And then we'll make our way through a forward bend back up into standing. So again, start to send your heels down and your sit bones up. Let your head go, let your arms go. And then touching the backs of your hands together on an exhalation, rolling up into standing. Beautiful, very nice. Now, I think I might just show you the next thing we're going to do, because this isn't something we've done before. So something I was playing around with today. We're going to come down and we're going to come into another dog pose. Once you're in dog, you're going to bring one foot central on the floor, and then you're going to cross the other leg around behind it. Once you've done this, so Jan, this is a different way into that forward bend we were doing yesterday. Once you've done that, you're going to see what it's like to walk your hands in towards your feet. You might not get them all the way, well, I don't know, just see how you get on, okay? And then we'll come back into dog pose. We'll do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll do a normal dog. And then I think also then we do a one leg dog in this little sequence, yeah. Okay, so we're going in and out of dog and a forward bend. So yeah, let's bring the hands into prayer pose. That would be nice. So at the back of your mat, hands in prayer pose. Let a breath come in as you exhale. Take your arms down and then up. Let a breath come in and then gathering the elbows in, rolling down into your forward bend. And then walk your hands forwards into dog pose. So what we're going to do then, as I said, is take one foot, so it's sort of more centrally positioned, and then you're going to step the other foot around the back of that foot and sort of crossing your calves, your ankles, and then start to walk your hands in towards your feet and just see what happens. You don't have to go all the way into a forward bend. See if you can bring your heels all the way down to the ground. Good, and see how that feels.
Behind or in front?
Behind. Oh, behind, yes, behind. You can probably do, but it's probably harder in front, I think. Good, that's very nice. And then you're going to walk back into dog pose, and you're going to change your feet around. So the other foot is going to step forward. I mean, you could cross either way, actually, Rachel, but I always tend to do the one behind. I think it feels perhaps slightly easier. Okay, and then again, walk into your forward bend once you've crossed your legs over, and see how it feels on the second side. Sometimes I get very confused in this and think, have I done both sides, or am I doing the same one again? And so again, have a breath or two in this cross-legged forward bend, if that's okay. And then again, walking forwards into dog pose. Good. And just do a normal dog pose here for a moment. And then from that normal dog pose, you're going to walk your hands in towards your feet. And just come into a normal forward bend and see how that feels. And that might just be quite a relief after the cross-legged ones. You've also got the option here, if you like, you could start to bend your knees. You could bring your chest close to your thighs. If you wanted to come down into a squat. Rachel, you're going to sit on the sofa. Do you want to sit on the sofa? So, yes. Good. And then from here, we'll reverse our squat back into a forward bend. We'll do one more dog pose in which in which that dog you can do your one-legged dogs if you like, and then you're going to have a little bit of quiet time. If this is all feeling rather lively, so you can come back into your forward bend. You can walk your hands forwards into dog. One last dog pose where if you like, you can do your one-leg dogs. So it's like we're sort of doing this opposite movements. That's it. So from crossing our legs, we're now sort of taking, especially if you take one leg up and then sort of roll your pelvis, the legs are moving quite far away from each other. So lifting the leg and then perhaps rolling the pelvis, reaching into the heel. Good. And whenever you think, oh, I've had more than enough there, you can just fold down into child pose. Just settle and quieten for a moment. So I just like us to, that's it, Jen, take your time to settle in child pose or kneeling for a few quiet breaths. And then we're going to do a little bit more breathing with our backs to a wall or a sofa or something like that. So wherever you are here, it's just maybe another cycle or two of your quiet breath in child or kneeling, feeling the movement of the breath through your body. And letting the shoulders soften and settle. Okay, let's now bring ourselves, so wherever you are, you can bring your back. You don't necessarily need to take your back, we're not going to do that yet. Bring your back to a sofa or a wall. We're going to sit with our legs long. They can be a little bit wide if you like. We're not going to be here that long, so you don't have to. You're right there, Jan, on the wooden floor. I've got enough. I think. So you can give your legs a little bit of a roll here. And so for the last few weeks, we've been doing our alternate nostril breathing, haven't we? And we're going to move on now to a sort of different breathing exercise, which is the Viloma breath, where we do our pausing breath. So what we're going to do to start with is come back to this one which we did in standing, where we had our hands on our low ribs, with the thumbs going around towards the back, and just slightly let the elbows, it's perhaps better if they come forwards rather than too far back. So if you close your eyes here and come to that feeling of widening and narrowing around the middle of yourself. So as you breathe in, your low ribs widen. And as you exhale, your ribs narrow a little bit. And then what I'd like you to do is just start to add a pause into the middle of your inhalation. So you're going to let the breath come in, and then you're going to pause, and then you're going to carry on breathing in to the end of the inhalation. And we'll just do 2 or 3 of these with the hands on the ribs. And just let the out breath leave without any pausing. So let the breath come in, pause, carry on breathing into the end of your inhalation. And then let your out breath go. So you could maybe try one more with your hands on your low ribs. If you feel that you could pause more than once, you're very welcome to do that. So it depends really what feels comfortable. So you let a little bit of breath come in, you pause, you let a little bit more breath come in, you pause, or you reach the end of your in-breath. So just sort of see how that feels. And then if it's helpful, you can keep your hands on your low ribs. Otherwise, just bring your hands to rest on your thighs and perhaps have another 2 or 3 cycles of breath where we're bringing this pause into our inhalation. So we let a breath leave us. We start to breathe in a little bit, then we pause the in-breath for a moment. We carry on breathing in. We pause again, and then we carry on breathing into the end of the inhalation. And then we let the out breath go. So breathing in, pausing, breathing in, pausing again. Breathing into the end of the inhalation. And just one more of these pausing breaths in your own time. And we'll come back to this later on in class. What I'd like you to do is just now bring your feet into cobbler pose and just have a couple of, perhaps 2 or 3 cycles of just sort of normal quiet breathing, sitting in cobbler pose. Yes, and if you want, you can keep your back against the wall, or you can come away from the wall if you prefer. It's entirely up to you. Just feeling that you can let the knees drop. Only so far they've dropped. That's it. And giving the weight of the legs and pelvis to the floor. And the heavier the legs and pelvis can feel, the more the spine can grow upwards. You can feel the head balance on the top of the spine. Do one more cycle of breath here. And if you're someone who likes to fold forwards a little bit in cobbler pose, then that is something you could do just before we come out. Tissues. So from here, we're going to be coming to do some slightly things we haven't done for a little while. We're going to come sit on our mats and get our legs roll out. So not bad, because we do that all the time. But come sit with your legs long, lean back on your hands and give your legs a little bit of a roll. Good. So the first thing we're going to do is, nobody likes this, we're going to do a little bit of our sort of table pose preparations. This is never a popular, which is probably why I haven't done it for months. So I'm starting off with my fingers pointing towards my toes. And what we're going to do is just sort of try out the hand positions. So you're not going to go very far. You're just going to let your sink into your feet and hands, let your bottom come off the floor, but you're not trying to bring it as far as you can. And you could just sort of sway a little bit forwards and back, or you could even wiggle your bottom from side to side. Good. And then we'll come down. We can sit back down again, and we'll try turning the hands so the fingers point out to the sides. It's probably helpful to look at the hands as you do that. And this is also sometimes a bit easier in the wrists. That's it. So then sink into the feet and the hands. How does that feel? Can you sort of sway a little bit forwards and back? Good. Okay, come down. We might just need to, for a moment, shake our hands out, bring the backs of the wrists together, and then we'll do the final hand position. So the final hand position, as you, I'm sure you may all remember from this from ages ago, is the fingers pointing away from us. And the other thing to try and sense when you come into this one, and you could sort of think this time, okay, if I want to try and bring my pelvis a little bit higher, I could. We don't need to push it because we will come back into this one. And the other thing is, I can see myself on Zoom, is often we have our hands and feet too close to each other. So just have a little shake out of hands. We're going to come to something else for a moment and then come back to that, something without arms. So we're going to come to this one where we lean forwards. That's it, that's our back curve. And we're going to be sliding our hands from our feet up to our knees and keep looking down at our belly. And just repeat this a few times. So we're thinking here about the lower back, or the whole of the spine rounding out. Good. Good. So obviously, Jan, we did these ones yesterday, but I think we haven't done these ones for a while. These ones meaning the ones where from here we could let's just try a couple of times. What's it like if we then let our feet come up and we're trying to balance? Oh, I've gone far too low. Trying to balance on sort of back of the pelvis and the lower back. So we'll try it a couple of times and then we'll come back to table pose. So rolling back, and actually sometimes it's, yeah, not waiting too long to pick up the feet. We're trying to feel the top. Shoulders and heels are at the same height. If I can get back up then. Okay, let's come back to, maybe just lengthen your legs out for a moment and give them a roll. And then we're going to come back to table pose. And so all those hand positions we did, choose one of them that you'd like to do again. Well, I'm not to do any of them, but choose one that you'd like to try again. And then plant your feet down. Think about perhaps the feet not being too close into the hands. We're trying to be this strange table position. We're just sending our knees away from us, lifting the pelvis. Good. Yeah, and some people like to drop the head back. I never quite like that. My neck doesn't like either ones. Oh, I can come down. Now, if you're feeling, the next one is if you're feeling, you could just repeat a normal table pose. If you're feeling a bit lively, you could try the one-armed table. Now, I tend to put my hands at this angle now, so rather than out to the side, they're sort of halfway between the side and the back, and that tends to work best. And if you're doing this one, you come up, and then you take one hand off the floor. You obviously do both sides. So, actually, sometimes that feels nicer than table itself. So you can do that if you like. Well done, Jan, because I know it's very nice. It's so the knees away from you. So yeah, so struggle in the wrists.
I'm not sure whether I can do it on this. This
Okay.
is like really.
Okay, well don't push it on that side.
Let's see. Sometimes.
No, can't do it on that wrist. No, well I think good not to. Yes, and then when you've done that on both sides, you're actually really quite enjoying that one. So, yes, I think sometimes it's nicer than the other table. We'll come back to a couple more of those rolling back, lovely abdominal boat poses. So starting with the hands on the feet, sliding the hands up towards the knees. And I think you do up and down a couple of times, but yes, I think if you leave it too late to pick the feet up, you end up a bit too low. So again, it's trying to feel we're in this place where our shoulders and heels are of the same height. When we've done the next one, we will lie down and stay lying down for a bit. So one last one, rolling back. It's a very good work. Oh. And then yes, let yourself lie down and settle onto your back. So we're going to do a few lying down things and then a little bit of breathing when you can, a little bit of breathing. So perhaps the first thing would be a bit of rolling your head to the right and to the left. So Sam, if you're feeling tired, then I think we're pretty much lying down now, a little bit of moving around. So for rolling your head, come to settle your head in the centre of the back of your head on the floor. Let a breath come in, let a breath leave. And if your legs are long, now bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And when you're ready, come back to a little bit of tilting your knees to the right and to the left. Very nice. Good. And then we're going to do another variation. We did a few variations at the beginning of this knee tilting. Now what I'd like you to do is pause in the centre, fold your right knee into your chest. And then let the right knee come out to the side and bring your right ankle onto your left thigh, close to your knee. That's it, good. Lovely. And then start to rock side to side on your standing foot. And again, if you feel that you want to bring your standing foot a bit more central, you could do. So there's a couple of things, well, I think we can do the rocking here on our standing foot. And we can also, if we like, pause in the centre and fold in. So we can pause in the centre, pick our standing foot off the floor, catch our hands around the back of what was the standing foot thigh. So we're folding the knees in towards us. So this starts to give us that sort of pigeon-like stretch through the knee that's going out to the side through that buttock. And just let yourself have a couple of breaths there. 2 or 3 or 4 cycles of breath. Lovely. And when you've had enough on that side, you could take your legs up to the ceiling or lengthen them out on the floor, perhaps lengthen the legs, yeah, either up to the ceiling or out on the floor for a moment before we do the second side. It's nice to see your feet there, Sam. So when you're ready, bend both knees, stand your feet on the floor again, and then let your left knee fold into your chest. Let the knee come out to the side and bring the left ankle onto the right thigh, close to the knee. And as we did on the other side, then start to tilt side to side on your standing foot. And it's up to you. So you've got the sort of these 2 options now. You can do a bit more of this rocking, just a little bit of a twist. And whenever you want to, you can pause in the centre, pick the standing foot off the floor, fold the knees in towards you, catch around the back of the standing foot thigh. And then it's just having a few breaths there. Nice for the lower back as well here, sort of lengthening out through the lower back. And of course, that sort of feeling of stretching through the buttock of the top leg. So you have another couple of breaths there. When you come out of this side, I'd like you to lengthen your legs out on the floor. And just lie long for a breath or 2, feeling the length of your body in contact with the ground, and particularly feeling the contact of your heels on the ground. So we're sending our awareness down into our feet. And from here, just so we don't completely fall asleep, we're going to roll onto one side and we're going to come to our side balancing pose, Anantasana, which I always find this nice combination of lying down but also doing a balance, so it keeps us a little bit alert. So, and it prevents us falling asleep. So when you're ready, roll onto one side. And you'll get that's it. So you're going to lie long on your side. I've got my head propped up in my bottom hand. You could have your bottom arm long, or you could bend your bottom elbow and rest your head on it like a pillow. And have your top hand on the floor in front of you. That's it. You can just do a little bit of rolling forwards and back on the side of your body. Good. And again, as we start to settle in this, so from rocking, we're going to settle. We could look down towards our feet for a moment. I tend to always walk my fingertips look towards my feet. I don't want to see my ankles, otherwise my feet are too far forwards. I want to feel part of the bottom edge of my foot in contact with the floor. So we've got that awareness travelling into the feet. We could bring our hand off the floor onto the top side of our body. And we can start to slide our top leg into tree pose. And it might be that you want to catch your ankle if you're going to bring your ankle high up on your inner thigh. And then at that point, yeah, you have a breath or 2 in tree. Good. And then from tree, we go on to then bringing the top knee towards the armpit and the top side of the body and just trying to settle there. So if you feel very wobbly, but you all look pretty steady, you can bend your bottom knee and slide it forwards. Otherwise, we're lengthening the top leg towards the ceiling, just trying to catch on to a trouser leg, a big toe, an ankle, something we can hold on to for a few breaths. Very nice. Settling down through the side of the body. You're right there, Jan.
Wobbly.
Okay, I don't feel so bad about completely falling out of my tree pose earlier. Good. When you've had maybe another cycle of breath here, don't worry too much, Jan. We just make your way down the way we came into it. So our knee comes back towards our armpit. We briefly sort of move through tree pose to having two long legs. And then from here, you're going to roll onto your belly and just settle on your belly. So we're not really doing anything on our belly here, apart from have a little rest, a little wiggle of the pelvis. I've got one hand on top of the other, my cheek or forehead resting on the hands, a little wiggle of the pelvis. And then maybe just a couple of quiet breaths here. How does it feel to settle and breathe on your belly? So remembering when we're focusing on our breath, when we're lying on our belly, we're focusing on the breath really expanding in the back of our body, in our back ribs. Okay, before we get too sleepy here, we're going to roll on to side two of Anantasana, our side balance. So settling down, so remember you can prop up your head in your bottom arm. You can have your top hand on the floor in front of you. You're actually balancing this so well, you probably don't even need this. Or your bottom arm can be long, or you can make it like a little pillow. A little bit of rocking forwards and back. So if you've got your top hand on the floor in front of you, just a little bit of rocking forwards and back helps us perhaps find a more settled place on our side. Because that's what we're looking for, this possibility of settling through the side of our body. Once you do find a settled place, or the best you can do, bring your top arm along the top side of your body. And then we can start to see how it is to move on into tree pose. And often, I'm just thinking, often one side is quite a bit easier in Anantasana. I'm thinking this side feels much trickier than the other side. So we can move on to tree pose for a couple of breaths. So you catch the ankle, bring your heel high up your thigh if you like. And then you can come on to bringing your knee towards your armpit on the top side of your body. Good. Very nice. And then from there, we start to lengthen that top leg up. We find wherever we can catch onto the leg. Good. And then settling. And there's a sense that we can send our awareness into both of our feet, particularly the heels. Perhaps down through the side of our body. Lovely. Let the breath come in, let the breath leave you. You have another cycle or two of breath if you like, making your way down whenever you want to. So sort of reversing the movements, knee to armpit, back through tree pose, lengthening out that top leg. And then once more rolling onto your belly. Just settle on your belly. And perhaps one hand on top of the other, giving the pelvis a wiggle. And feeling the movement of the breath in your body. Just a couple more cycles of breath here. And then from here, you're going to roll over onto your back. And we're going to do a little bit more of our Viloma breathing here. So I don't know whether Jan or Rich will be able to blanket. Jan. Oh, there's lights. Do you want those lights on?
I don't mind. No, they're fine.
Okay.
And I quite like them actually.
Yeah, do you quite like them? Yeah, they're They're a good addition, they're cats, and they're good for yoga. So yes, settle down onto your backs, and we're going to have a little exploration of our Viloma, our pausing breath on our out breath. So when we do Viloma breathing, we can do it on the in breath or the out breath or both. And we're going to focus on the exhalation now. So just settle down. It might be nice to have your hands on the front of your body. So settle down and just connect with the flow of your breath in your body. And when we're pausing on the inhalation, we pause just before, on the out breath, sorry, we pause at the beginning of the out breath as well as in it. So let's just let an out breath leave us without any pauses. So let a breath leave. And then let a breath come in. And at the end of that inhalation, you're going to pause and then exhale. Just exhale half your out breath, pause, and then breathe out to the end of your out breath. And then let a breath come in. When you've received all of your in-breath, pause, exhale, half of your out breath or thereabouts, pause, carry on breathing out to the end of your exhalation. And then again, receiving an inhalation. At the end of that inhalation, you pause for a moment. Then you breathe out a little bit. You pause. You breathe out a little bit more. You might reach the end of your out breath, or you might pause again. Breathe out a little bit more. All the way to the end of your out breath. So let's try this for 4 more cycles of breath, where you're adding in a pause before you start to breathe out, and then 1 or 2 pauses during your exhalation. And see how you get on. Keep it as sort of easy and relaxed as possible. So make the next cycle of pausing breath your last one. And just be very sort of easy and relaxed with it. So receiving an inhalation, pausing at the end of the inhalation, exhaling a little bit, pausing, exhaling a little bit more, pausing, and then all the way to the end of your out breath. And then let go of that breathing and just come back to feeling a couple of normal cycles of breath move through you. And I just thought, before we completely settle down for a few quiet cycles of breath, you might like to do one last little bit of sort of tilting your knees and rocking. We do one more variation. So bend your knees. If your legs are long, bend your knees and stand your feet on the floor. And start by letting your knees tilt to the right and to the left. So come back once more to that familiar movement, knees tilting to the right and to the left. Very nice. And then you could pause in the middle and cross your arms over your chest. That's it. And now let the knees and the elbows and the head all rock in the same direction. Good. So you're rocking side to side across the back of your body. Very nice. Good. Lovely. And you can, whenever you want to from there, you can carry on, but whenever you're ready, you can just undo your arms. Lengthen out your legs if you wish, you don't have to. Right, I'll just turn that light out, Jan, just for the last. We're just going to now have maybe half a dozen or so quiet cycles of breath. Letting the body rest. And just have a very sort of expansive but perhaps soft awareness. So your awareness is encompassing your breath, your body, the ground beneath you, the air around you. Perhaps any sounds. The seagulls here. And just for another few cycles of breath, let yourself rest and be. So thank you everyone. There's no rush. You can stay where you are. Lovely. Just turn off that recording and hear the voice.